Welcome to Inspire and Move, the show that inspires you to create, connect, and grow. I'm going to bring you meaningful conversations, aha moments, and all the motivation you need to up-level every part of your life. I'm Ali Aruda, founder of Inspire and Move, and your personal hype girl. I've gone from fashion school to celebrity stylist to corporate marketing to brick-and-mortar entrepreneurship with my husband, each time learning incredible lessons how to pivot, reimagine, and implement the steps to become successful. I'm passionate about inspiring others to live their best life, a life of joy. We have the power to design a life that we love, because life is too short not to. The best part is that you weren't meant to do this alone. If you feel like you are meant for more, let me ride shotgun with you, and together, let's get you to where you want to go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Inspire and Move podcast. I am so excited for today's re-release episode with my sweet, sweet friend, Lindsey Marie, the one and only founder of Powerhouse Women. And not only do I love Lindsey so much, but I am getting ready to head off to attend my third Powerhouse Women event in person in Scottsdale, Arizona, which just so happens to be the 10th year that she is celebrating this exceptional event. And I just felt like it was so fitting to celebrate this and re-release this episode I got to record a couple of years ago in person, in studio, in Arizona with Lindsey. A lot has changed actually in both of our lives, a lot of growth and evolution and expansion. And she is just an incredible human. And so if you do not know her and love her and follow her already, make sure you do so after you listen to this episode. But I hope that you love it and you also extract some value from this. So without further ado, please enjoy. Guys, welcome back to the Inspire and Move podcast. I feel like I am 10 out of 10 excited right now, sitting across from one of my favorite humans. And if you guys don't know her, buckle up because we're going to have such a good chat. I'm so excited to dive into so many things. Whoop, buckle on, safety, ready to go.
Safety first.
This human has been so transformative for me, and I am so grateful to call you a friend, and I am like really obsessed with watching you rise into just this incredible journey and powerhouse that you are. You guys, big warm welcome. I know you guys can't clap, but I can clap, and I am so excited to welcome Lindsey Schwartz on the podcast today.
Yay! I'm not above applauding for myself.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me. I really love anytime we get to spend time together. So this is going to be so fun.
I just get to gaze into your eyes
Yeah,
for like
we're really
an
having
hour.
a moment right now.
I know.
Your husband
I
is
love it.
here, so it's fine.
It's totally fine.
He's not weirded out by our eye gazing.
No, I have so much love for you. Such a girl crush. Okay, so Ali, gather your thoughts here. I am so excited to go deep into your entrepreneurial journey. But where I wanted to kind of start before we go nice and deep on that is, was there a spark? Like, was there a spark for you along the journey, whether it was, junior high, high school, university, far after that? Was there a moment or a spark that was like, aha, of like, I want to be an entrepreneur?
I think about this a lot because there really wasn't a moment earlier in my life. Like so many people have I did the lemonade stands. I had like little things that I would do. But the truth is I didn't know entrepreneurs growing up. I didn't have any models. So my dream was to grow up and be a mom and a teacher and to be, all these things that I just saw modeled around me by amazing women like my own mother and like so many female role models. But then when I also look back, I remember this feeling that I couldn't actually put into words, but like I just knew I was supposed to be great. Like I really just knew I was supposed to do something big and achieve something big. And because I grew up in a really small town in the Midwest and didn't really have a lot of role models around me, I couldn't see now. I was just dreaming as big as I could see in my, circle. So it wasn't until, going to college and moving out of Wisconsin and just starting to be exposed to different things that I started to dream bigger. It's why I just believe so much in, surrounding ourselves with people who have these aspirational lives so we can kind of just start to see something bigger for ourselves. So it wasn't until 2008, my first job out of college was selling carpet.
Love this.
There's no way to make that sound cooler than it is. But at that time, it was also this interesting time in the world where in the US especially, there was a recession hitting and I was in the commercial construction industry. And it was the first time ever in my life that I remember just having the thought of like, maybe I should consider a plan B. maybe I should start a little something of my own. I don't even know what that could be, but just maybe. And it was just like this little hint of the first idea that I could or even wanted to do something of my own. Because at that time, I was perfectly happy kind of chasing the American dream, climbing the corporate ladder, and just like thought I had it made. I had a company car, a cell phone, an expense account. Yes, I sold flooring, but I just like felt like, okay, I've made it. Like, this is it. Until I think sometimes we reach the pinnacle of what we think success is. And then we're like, I think there's actually more. I just couldn't see beyond this point until I got here.
I love that so much. And it's so neat to hear that it came from you thinking that you want to have something else versus it coming from somebody else. Because I feel like there's a lot of people that could, whether they're listening here or just in the world, that they have side hustles, but it's more coming from a parent. And I think having that fire within yourself and that realization that, something else would be a good addition, and then that can turn into instead of. Is this when you approached the world and the industry of network marketing?
It was. And this is actually not something I share on like a lot of podcasts just because it makes the story really long. But it was also around the time that I was just getting really into personal development and reading about mindset and affirmations and all these things. So I was like, okay, all these really smart people say create affirmations. And I remember just having this simple thought to myself that there are people who get paid a lot of money to do what they love. Like things that other people look at as leisure, that's what other people get paid a lot of money to do professionally. So I would think about like my dad, who was working in corporate at that time and just waiting for his next vacation so he could golf for a week, and contrast that to someone who's like paid to golf professionally. Now, I didn't have any athletic skills that I could take pro, unfortunately, but it was the first time I just asked myself a question of like, well, what would my version of that be? Like, what would I love to do? If I could do anything, what would I love to do and get paid for? And the answer just kind of simply came down to this idea that I loved health and fitness. I even wanted to prioritize it more in my life. And I was like, that'd be kind of cool just to get paid to be like really healthy and fit. Mm-hmm. And so I wrote my first little list of affirmations, and I remember just writing so clearly. What I wrote was, I'm so happy and fulfilled to have started a business that combines my passion for personal development with health and fitness.
I love that.
And I wrote that out, and then it was actually Elliot, who's my now husband, we were engaged at the time, who was kind of dabbling in this network marketing company, and I didn't make the correlation until much later that it was essentially exactly what I was calling in, something that was very based in personal development and health and, this positive community. So my first little foray into entrepreneurship was that network marketing company, but I was, unbeknownst to me, calling it in for 6 months before that ever happened. And I really believe in that. I believe like when we set those intentions, like we start to get those little breadcrumbs of the answers that we're looking for.
I have a background in network marketing as well, and I think I have really appreciated over the last few years of watching and consuming people like yourself that I've learned that also had a background in that industry. And that's not the focus of this conversation, but I find it so interesting because there are many people that will have a camp that be like, give it a bad rap.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of love and gratitude for it because it has got me to some really cool places in my life. Mm-hmm. But I think the biggest thing is actually the personal development piece, because that's what got me into personal development.
Same.
And it's something that you can be obsessed with kind of year over year and can grow and appreciate, that everybody can benefit from personal development.
It's so true. I was one of those weird people who I actually didn't know enough to be skeptical, which was really a blessing in disguise, because I am typically someone who not so much skeptical but overthinks things. And I just remember being like, oh yeah, this is it. This is what I want to do. And Elliot, even my now husband, he even said to me, he's like, I think I just joined a pyramid scam. And I go, well, you're a smart guy, whatever that is. I'm sure it's going to be great. Just no idea. But what I learned was, it's an industry that's really based in personal development, and taught me so much about sales, about the right mindset, about growing myself if I want to grow a business. And I wouldn't be the person I am today without that journey, that decade that I spent building that business.
I'm sort of the same. I have the same feelings, and I like to even tell people in just from a conversational standpoint, that a benefit that can even come from network marketing is it's like business with the training wheels.
Yes.
You know, your cost could be $10 or whatever the business is, the company, the products, but it's such a low risk, low cost way to start, and then try on the entrepreneur hat. Maybe you love it, and maybe you don't, because you typically start in business by yourself, and you build on that, and you have this world of personal development to support everything that you're experiencing on that journey.
Yeah, that was so the same experience that I had, and I really would have kept going. There was even a point where I just had a choice to make. I had to choose to go all in on this new thing I had been building, this Powerhouse Women idea, which wasn't making money, or continue building this very successful network marketing business that we had created. I mean, I turned in those carpet samples and went full time into my own business, and thought, then I was in the season where I really thought that was going to be the future. I had no dreams of stepping outside of that until, I guess this is like the theme for my story, until I just started to look around at the current level I had achieved and just realize, oh, there is actually more. And I think more for me isn't so much based in, okay, now I just need to make that next level of income. I think that's a very unfulfilling journey to chase. For me, I'm always in pursuit of what's the next expansion for myself. Like, what is that next level of personal development, and what environment do I have to put myself in order to force myself to step into that? And that season was such a big part of that journey, opening up my awareness to just how much growth was possible.
I love that. And I love that you dropped a couple breadcrumbs getting us to Powerhouse Women, because I want to go right in deep on that, going from, your book and how things started with your Ladies Who Lunch and organizing those events to what Powerhouse Women is today. And it has been so fun to watch that journey. And for me, that's only been a few years, but I want everybody in the Inspire and Move community right now to be able to learn what that journey has been like for you.
Yeah. And it's kind of perfect that we started with the season of network marketing, because something that I started to notice in that season, number one, in where I live right now, Phoenix, there wasn't a lot of community outside of just your traditional networking groups. Nothing wrong with that, but I was noticing that I had ambitious friends, women who were nurses, who were professionals, who were craving the same kind of conversations that I was, but they didn't necessarily need referrals for like more sick people. Right? If you're a nurse, you want to connect with other ambitious women, but going to like the traditional networking groups where it's all referral based just wasn't a fit. So, and I think this is so often how our bigger purpose evolves. It starts with that little breadcrumb of saying, well, okay, I'm kind of craving this too. Well, maybe I could put a little something together. So I did. I used to host these little lunch events monthly. I called them Ladies Who Lunch, because that's just as creative as I could get. We weren't having breakfast. It wasn't dinner. And I think you've heard this story before, how one time a woman reached out. She's like, I'm so excited that there's a chapter of this in my city. I had no idea. And I was like, that sounds more official than we are. Can you tell me a little bit more? She's like, yeah, Ladies Who Launch. And I said, oh no, we just lunch.
I love that.
That's it.
And I love how you've started. There was a moment when you went to lunch for Ladies Who Lunch, and you enjoyed a beautiful lunch by yourself.
It was a lady who lunches, and I was that lady.
Singular.
Just me, singular.
Party of one?
Yes, and and I feel like that's ultimately, we all have those moments in our journey where we have the time that something doesn't turn out as planned, or the launch doesn't go well, or no one joins. I knew enough from network marketing that, like, oh, okay, now I just earned this Girl Scout badge. I had my first event that no one showed up to. Cool. Now I just get to build it from here. So even just like to see my personal growth to that point, and to not have that be this just like dream killing experience. It was the beginning of something that I didn't know I was so passionate about, which is bringing people together. So I was having these lunches for about a year, and this was in the same season where I started to just realize that what I realize now is that I had a bigger vision for my life that I wasn't stepping into. I wasn't growing. I wasn't challenging myself. And the way I always describe it is, I, looking back now, see that I was operating at maybe 60% of my full potential. And it was tricky because my 60% can produce results that look like other people's 100. And I think like when you know you're very gifted and you know you're like the kind of person who makes stuff happen, it's this catch-22 of like, you can coast and still produce like really great results, and it's up to you. You're the only one who's going to call yourself out on like, this isn't my max, this isn't my full potential. And I didn't really know why I felt so restless at the time, but I just knew I needed something. And I remember just thinking to myself, well, okay, personal development is the thing that has always kind of helped catapult me to that next level. And it was in 2016, and I still have the document saved on my computer that says a book a week in 2016, because that was my goal. I was going to read a book every week. And I read the first week week into January. The second week of January, I saw an acquaintance post on Facebook about doing a writing program for entrepreneurs who wanted to get their message out in the form of a book. And I still have the screenshot of the message I sent her, the DM that said, I don't know why I'm messaging you, but something inside said, you should do that. And I remember that conversation leading to a call with the person who was coordinating the 16-week program. And I walked into the call saying to Elliot, well, I'm just taking this call, but I'm not going to write a book. And then 30 minutes later saying, so I'm writing a book. And I gave the woman my credit card, and paid $2,000, which felt like $2 million to me at the time. And there was just something that said, like, lean into this, the next little breadcrumb. And I really just did it to prove that I could, prove that I could do something bigger than what I was currently doing. Never planned for it to create a business, start a movement, create events. But that book really was inspired by all these women that I was meeting and sitting down with, in network marketing. We're talking with people all the time about like, what are your big dreams? Like, tell me. And I always joke, this is why I didn't go to like the tippy top of network marketing, because we'd sit down and they'd be like, oh, I'm so inspired by what you've done. I don't think that's for me. Like, I don't think I want to build this health and wellness business or a network marketing business, but I've always had this other idea. And I'm like, yeah, screw this. Tell me more about your other idea. And I would get so lit up just seeing how lit up they were. But in the next breath, they would tell me why they weren't ready, or they didn't know the right people, or they didn't have the right skills, or they were just afraid. They felt like an imposter. And every single time I would kind of sit back and go, well, wait a minute. Didn't anyone tell you? That's actually how we all feel. You didn't know that? Wait, let me tell you how scared I am every day, how much I don't know what I'm doing. And it just made me realize we need to have more honest conversations about the ups and the downs and the hard parts, just so that these perfectly capable people, and a lot of them for me were women, who have big ideas, don't stop before they get started thinking that we all have something figured out that they don't. And that was the little seed of what has now become Powerhouse Women.
Well, and I love that you shared this backstory about the book.
Yeah.
Because I remember hearing you talk about this, live at events, panelists, keynotes, but also your podcast. What was the title of your book?
Powerhouse Woman.
Yes.
Yes.
And then you did a book launch.
Yeah.
And the book launch turned into, had a new name.
Are you talking about the event?
Yes.
Yeah. So I was part of this program, and it was basically a self-published book with, some support behind it. And so the woman who was my editor and kind of acted as publisher, she said, well, a lot of people will do an event to celebrate, book launch. Now, number one, I was like, I know like 20 people, so it's gonna be a very small event.
But I throw a mean lunch,
and maybe people will come.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like, well, okay, that could be fun. Because also now I was starting to piece together how powerful and impactful events had been for me in network marketing. And just, I saw the power of bringing together conversations and having these discussions that helped people feel less alone in their own journey. And so the book was called Powerhouse Woman. It was really intended to point people back to what's already inside of us, not to say, well, you just need to learn these 5 steps or do these 5 things and then you can call yourself a powerhouse. It was really pointing everyone, including myself, back within. And I said, an event focused on me sounds awful. That sounds like torture. Really don't love to have all the attention on me. But maybe we could have these conversations in a room and bring in different speakers and just show that anyone you see on the internet who's crushing it is also struggling sometimes, and they have just as many challenges. And that turned into the first ever Powerhouse Women event. Now we're plural.
Yep. Love it.
We have a couple
So
of
many.
them. So many. And I never intended for that one book launch event to turn into what's now an annual event with women attending globally and all sorts of crazy things. But I don't think I was ever supposed to see the full picture, because had someone shown that Lindsey a vision of what my life looks like today, 6-7 years later, I think I would have been too freaked out. I never would have continued. I would have hid under my covers because it was too much for me to even envision at that time. So I always got just the next little step, just enough to make me stretch outside my comfort zone, but not so much of the vision. And even today, I don't see the 10-year vision because I think it would be too big. I think I would just pee my pants. And I'm thinking back to our dinner conversation the other night. Okay, I think I would just like soil myself and then hide under the covers because I'm not that person yet.
I have just like loved hearing and sort of piecing together in my mind of, snippets that I have consumed from your storybook and your journey. But I think it is so neat to just hear you and gaze into your eyes, hearing you talk about this journey and how it all pieces together, or parts of it piece together to where you are today. And I want to really now go deeper on Powerhouse Women. And I love live events. I'm not hosting events the scale of what you host, but what has that journey looked like for you? From we'll just call it like book launch for, Powerhouse Woman that turned into Women, to what annual number is it coming up this August?
So we're 7 years in, but this will be our 8th event.
It's amazing. And what has that evolution looked like? What has it felt like? Because I think that's a really big question here too, because there's what people see on Instagram and what they see online, what they hear on the podcast. But there is so much behind the scenes that happens in the other 364 days before that exceptional August day. What has that journey looked like for you?
I think your question is like really having me reflect on how much the event has essentially just become a reflection, an outer reflection of the inner change that happens within me, and I know within all of us, those 364 other days. And that's what's so cool about the growth of it. Isn't just being able to say that, we've grown it to these hundreds of women, or that it's grown every year, it's profitable. It's seeing the transformations. And I see it in myself. I see the person I've become and the person I get to bring to the stage into that room every year. But I see it now in our community, the women who've attended year after year, and they've physically transformed before my eyes. They walk taller, they walk more confidently. What they're accomplishing and how proud they are of themselves it transforms. And I think it's just so beautiful to have this annual timestamp to really make ourselves reflect back on how far we've come. And that's ultimately like, yes, we talk about business. Yes, we have a ton of fun and there's dancing and there's energy, but at the heart of it is this transformational journey of each of us kind of, like I've been talking about, looking out at the horizon and saying like, okay, well, who do I want to be next year? Who's this version of me I want to step into? How does she dress? What is she doing? How does she show up for herself and the people that she loves? And then every day working to step into that version, and then bringing that version of ourselves to the room at this annual timestamp when we get back together. And that's my favorite part of it. I don't even know if that was the answer to your question, but that's what's on my heart.
I'm like, tell me more. Tell me more. Well, I've heard you talk about, you and Hannah, talking about how Powerhouse is like your New Year's. And hearing you even reference, timestamp, I think that is just so timely.
Yes.
That's what your vision is for the event and for the transformation that all of the women attending experience. And I would love to know, like, the emotions that you feel, maybe not so much leading up to the event, because I can appreciate those probably a wide range of those emotions. But what do you feel when you step onto the stage and you are looking out at this audience of women that are showing up for the first time, that are showing up for the second, third, fourth, or they've been there all 8 years? What do you feel when you step onto that stage looking out at this audience?
So many things. I feel this I almost picture like the movie Avatar where everyone's like plugged into the tree. This is getting too weird. It's like this connection that I can feel, even if they can't see and feel it yet, knowing how connected everyone is going to feel to each other, to themselves, to the bigger vision by the time that they leave, because we've designed it that way. We know exactly how to walk people through that emotional journey. And just proud, like so excited for people, for people to like really remember who they are, for them to remember their power. And I'm vicariously and very personally having that experience within myself. That is where I feel my most powerful. I feel my most self-expressed. I feel my most in my authentic identity is that day on the stage with my people, having conversations about like who we want to become, but also honoring who we've been that has brought us to this point. So it's a very like spiritual experience. And I always tell people, like, you know, I can try my best to explain it in words, but until you're there in the room in that energy, you can't even fathom. Like it really is just it's a different community. It's a different experience, and you feel it. It's visceral.
I love that. Who is Powerhouse Women for?
I think it's for any woman, but even that is, you know, we've never turned away a dude who wants to attend.
Well, Matt Aruda loves going to all female events. It wouldn't be his first time, so maybe I'll bring him with me. He'd be one of three in the audience, and the husband's in the back.
Yeah, Elliot holds down the back of the room and is there just like so beautifully holding space. And of course, Rick, my dance instructor, who is just an amazing human being, was there with us this year. So women, but we'll just, include anyone who just really resonates with this idea that you want more for yourself. You want to evolve and grow in your career, in your business, in your life. I think my original intention, because I was an entrepreneur, was to create a community for entrepreneurs. But it's so beautiful to see how the vision has expanded far beyond that to women who are, creating change in their corporate career. They're just leaders and visionaries in their lives, and they want to plug into other people who are thinking that big. Because the biggest thing that I've realized for myself is, unless I'm surrounding myself with other people who are thinking as big as I am or beyond, I start to look around and question myself. I start to look around and think, well, is this okay for me to have these really big, wild dreams? And that's not to say that other people in my life don't get it or they aren't supportive. I don't expect them to get it. I don't expect anyone else to get my vision. That vision was given to me for a reason. But it's up to me to support that vision with the right kind of people who are going to pour into it, who are going to pour life into it, and not just encourage me and say like, good for you, that's amazing, but to say, I think you can think bigger. I think you could do that in 6 months, so where are you going to be in a year? And it's that kind of support and accountability and community that has ultimately changed my life, and I know how transformational it can be for other people. So again, I'm just really selfishly creating what I need, and I'm just blown away by seeing how it ripples into the lives of everyone else who's there.
I love that. Yeah. I'm so excited to just experience that feeling.
I know.
And transformation, maybe a little bit of twerking, leaving room for some magic and some moves.
You never know what you could shake free just by learning how to twerk. It's true.
I love that. Quick question. Are you building your business or are you building it alone? If you're a business owner making between $25K and $500K and you're ready to scale smarter in 2026, the Mentor Collective Mastermind is where you need to be. You'll get direct mentorship from Chris and Lori Harder, support from a team of expert coaches, and real implementation and accountability support with me and Matt as your accountability coaches, making sure you actually execute and implement and not just consume. This is high-level strategy, powerful community, and the structure to grow without burning out. If you're ready for your next level in income, leadership, and life, join us for the Mentor Collective Mastermind. One of the things I want to kind of chasse over into is community, which I think goes so beautifully with who you are, what you do, what you are building, and what you have built. Do you have foundational components when it comes to building community? Whether it, maybe not so direct and black and white as a checklist, but there are things that you've learned and picked up along the way that you feel is really imperative to cultivating community?
I got asked this question so many times that at one point I did have to sit down and actually think through, like, well, how would I explain this? Because I think, and I watch you operate in this way and so many others, where when we're just really operating from our authentic zone of genius and the way we see the world, I didn't realize that we were doing anything really all that different. I knew it felt different, but it took me a while to actually dissect what it was. And what I really boil it down to, and what I teach people now, is it's really this combination of three things. But the first one is the most important, which is creating a culture that really draws people in and makes them want to stay, makes them feel like they belong. Because community is, at its core, it's about connection. So I think if you're creating community around anything, around a business, around something you're passionate about, it's really answering the question, well, what are you unifying people around? What is that connective tissue? What do we all believe that, we know, and I always use this example, if you were to meet someone in a far corner of the world and find out that they were connected to the Powerhouse Women community, there's something or a few things you would just automatically assume about that person. And that, ultimately, that's what your culture is. Whether that's what you want it to be or not, it's really thinking through, like, if someone were to meet another woman who listens to Inspire and Move or is part of your community, and you're not even there, but someone's like, oh my gosh, you also listen to this podcast and are a part of this movement, the immediate thing that I think about them and I know about them in that moment, that's the connective tissue. That's what we're unifying people around. So when you realize that, you can be intentional, right? You can be intentional about starting to seed into the community. Well, who are we and what do we believe and what do I want people to know about us, so that they know if they're a fit or if they know that they're not. I believe that I want everyone to be included, but also I'm very protective over the culture that we've created. And I think that's the most important piece. Like, when you're creating community, you're essentially creating a feeling of belonging. And that is fundamentally such a deep human need. It's actually on the hierarchy of needs. It's right above food, shelter, and water. Things you would actually die without.
I was like, again, mesmerized, looking and gazing into your eyes. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, that's such a, like,
I get really fired up talking about this.
I'm like, I feel that so deeply.
Yeah.
And I'd love to take that and even just kind of, I love consuming this and, being in this world and seeing it from the outside, and all of these people listening, that all of these people, there might be only 75 of them.
All 100 million trillion of you.
That will go probably, deeply consume Lindsey Schwartz and Powerhouse Women.
You can gaze into my eyes.
Yes.
On the internet.
It's magical. Highly recommend. 10 out of 10 experience. They're going to see the community and connection you have with your girlfriends. I think you have this incredible group of girlfriends that I have loved watching and being in the room with, and it's magical. What is your feeling when you really feel like you have this groundbreaking, like, supportive network of girlfriends in your life? And how has it taken you a long time to have that? Have you had bumps and bumps and peaks and valleys along the way?
Yeah.
What has that been like?
It's been a lot of work. It has. And I think I've always been really great at connecting with people. I do think that's a little bit of, like, the Midwest in me, which I think that's also a Canadian trait because we're so close. We're basically just like a hop, skip, and a jump across the border. But I've always had this natural curiosity and just, like, love for people. But where I had to go to work was on allowing myself to be really seen and really supported. And that takes vulnerability, which was not something I was super comfortable with. I would so much rather be the one holding space for and showing up for other people. But if you're the only one doing that and you're not allowing someone to also hold space and show up for you, the relationship isn't going to have the depth that I think we're all really craving. And even just this last year, going through some really challenging moments, I realized how lonely I was feeling. And the only reason I was feeling lonely while also being surrounded, like you said, by just, like, the most incredible women in my life is because I wasn't willing to let them see me in my less than perfect, less than strong, less than having it all together moments. And not because I was afraid of them judging me, because I actually didn't feel judged at all. It was because I didn't want to be a burden, you know, to these women who have so much on their plate. They're going through their own challenges and struggles. But the moment that I opened up to a handful who I just knew, I knew that this was an opportunity for a breakthrough. I think the more you do personal development, you realize that when you're in those moments where everything in you is resisting it and you're like, no, yes, you're having this little struggle in yourself. You're like, this is the next opportunity for growth if you'll just step through this door. And I remember sending a Voxer note to my business partner, who's also like one of just my best friends in the world. And I was like, I'm like getting emotional thinking about it. I was like, can we just set up a time to talk so I can tell you what's going on right now? And we have like literal bestie ESP. And she's like, I was waiting for you to just like tell me. And I remember just feeling like vulnerable, asking for that, just asking for time to just like kind of not unload and like put my emotional drama on her, but just to be like, this is where I've been and this is how I'm feeling. And I don't even know what I need to ask for right now, but I just want someone to hold space. And I don't want anyone to try to fix it. I just want to be like held. And the result on the other side was feeling so supported, not feeling like a burden, actually feeling like it brought us closer, which is what I want. And not feeling weak, I actually felt strong. I felt like my own strength in my willingness and ability to just be honest that the strongest of people also go through things that are challenging because I'm playing a really big game. I'm risking really big in my life right now. And that requires a high level of support in order to do that and not have it negatively impact my physical health, my mental health, or my relationships. So even just, and I know it's so easy to like look at someone's life on the outside and see the relationships, see the friendships, but even just this in like the last 6 months, that has been a huge breakthrough for me in creating more closeness, even with the women who I adore and I consider us close. But in that moment that I was willing to be vulnerable, the relationship went so much deeper.
Oh, I love that. I really feel that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wanted to learn a little bit more about your last year, and not in, you know, a really, I want to know deeply.
Like,
but
I'm open book. Where do we want to go?
I know that you've shared a lot, even just on your show, about how you really found a lot of stillness this last year. Let's call it 2023. I don't know when maybe it started, if it was like a January thing or when you started that, and you did some solo trips. I would hear you talk a lot about meditation. Yeah. And I mean, I personally don't do slow very well. So that was one of my big things when I was like, when I have the opportunity to chat with Lindsey, I really want to learn about how she slowed down. And it is also very cool to have seen what you just recently launched. And I want to kind of get into the Expanders Retreat and that new chapter for you and Powerhouse Women. But I would love to learn what that, you know, journey felt like, from really recognizing and honoring and taking the action of slowing down. You said no to things, you closed down some of your programs and offerings, which in turn also meant revenue in your business. Mm-hmm. And I know you guys, even for you and Elliot as husband and wife, you went through some big changes with Elliot's sort of professional journey as well. Mm-hmm. So I would love to learn more about your slowdown year.
Yeah. And I also want to acknowledge that my version of slow probably doesn't look like someone else's. I had to really come to terms with a few years that my pace doesn't look like anyone else's pace. And I say that because I think, you know, so often it's easy for me to compare where I am to someone else, or even like, okay, well, this person is talking about stillness and I'm feeling a call to that, but I don't know, could I slow down that much? Or, you know, I'm sure there's people who look at me and don't think this looks very still at all. So defining that by your own terms and really like deepening that connection to your own intuition. What are you being asked of? You might be in a season where you're being asked to be really bold and say yes and be out there and be busting through limiting beliefs and fears. And I've had those seasons. And I got to a point where I just felt that I wasn't creating the space that I really need in order for my best ideas to come through. And learning more about myself through like human design and even like the Enneagram, like really learning about how I'm uniquely wired. Everything comes back to this need for a lot of alone time, stillness, and quiet, and just creating margins in my life. And I got to a point where I just didn't feel like I had that. And it was more the fact that in my business, I felt like I was trying to have a solution for everyone. I don't want to leave anyone behind.
Yeah, I got you all.
I'm like, you want what? Okay, great. We're going to add that. And I think that actually has value. And I talk a lot about in my community, I've had these seasons, I'll call them like my buffet season, where like I'll allow myself to try on different things, but with the intention that I'm going to eventually clear from my plate whatever isn't like, you think about like eating at a buffet, like my favorite foods. If something is like a meh, I'm going to eventually clear it off the plate. So I got to one of those points where we had added offers that honestly, if I'm looking back, I added them because someone else told me I should, because someone else was like, oh, memberships, you should have a membership, recurring revenue, like that's where it's at. And that wasn't actually a full hell yes from me. I'm a generator in human design, so like now I know what a hell yes feels like. And so too many of those things had crept in, and I don't believe you have to get to this point of total burnout before you make changes. And that I was just sort of like in this awareness where I was like, I could keep going. I'm probably gonna it'll start to impact my mood, my relationships, that I really cherish, and I don't want that to happen. So my business partner and I, both very intuitive. We've got, bestie ESP. So we were both kind of feeling it. And it felt scary. It felt scary to say like, hey, our biggest moneymaker is this year-long mastermind. Yeah, let's not do that this year. So
it seems like a good idea that we're just going to close that.
And it's so weird, but when it's a yes, I didn't even question it. Yes, does it feel uncomfortable? Of course. You're starting to like do the numbers and do the math and be like, can we really make this work? But because I've done so much inner work to clear away other people's opinions and really tune in and know what mine feels like, it was an easy but challenging yes. So that was first to go. Just cut it. Just gave it a haircut.
Yeah.
Then, it was, okay, now I feel like we're being called to also cut this other, very profitable, very easy to facilitate offer, which was this membership. And just listening to that little by little. But it came to August, heading into September, we were wrapping up the membership. And what I now realize looking back is a part of why I was being called to clear the space was when I was in so much activity, when I was always on Zoom calls, always planning content, just really serving from a beautiful place. And I was loving everything I was doing. I didn't have any time to feel. I didn't have any time to feel just some emotions that were coming up, some fears that were coming up. And that led to that season where I started to really, it all started to bubble up, like vomit that's kind of bubbling up. And you're like, oh, okay, here it is. And what I sense to be true, and we can check back a year from now, is I just think that I wasn't listening because I had such a full plate. I couldn't hear those little whispers about what was next. And all I can say is that I keep getting the guidance from my intuition, whoever you believe, your intuition, higher power comes from, just to clear space. And I don't know what I'm clearing it for yet. And I think that no one really talks about being in that moment. I can't wait to come back and say like, oh, it was for this or this huge opportunity I just had to keep space clear for. But no one talks about how hard it is to be in the space, especially when you're someone who loves to be active and loves to be doing and contributing, to just really know that I'm still supposed to keep space clear. It's been really, really challenging, but also there have been such beautiful lessons in it because I'm changing in the midst of it.
And do you feel a different way because of welcoming this space?
I do. I feel a different way on the other side of processing through some of those emotions that I wasn't leaving time to feel before. And it wasn't anything even that traumatic. It was it was just some things that what I now realize looking back, I was doing in a lot of activity, trying to control things. You mentioned, so my husband left his very safe, very comfortable corporate job. We're very heavily in on a real estate project that, just is a bigger risk than we've taken before. It still feels like I wouldn't change it for the world, but I realized how much of like my safety and security I was placing in money and in what was in my bank account. And I was used to having different numbers in my bank account. So then I just wanted to like overwork to make up for that. But what it wasn't requiring me to do was like actually lean into what I fully believe is that, abundance is an energy and it can come from who I'm being, not just what I'm doing. And I think I was operating from this place of fear that I didn't realize I was until I paused long enough to understand the motivation that was underneath it. So I'm not saying that I'm always going to just be in stillness, but I think I'm rewiring my whole relationship with work and money and how I'm generating abundance right now and breaking some patterns that have been like deeply wired into my core from birth. Beliefs about like, money doesn't grow on trees. It only comes from hard work. And if you continue to look at life through that context, you're going to reach a max capacity for how hard you can work. So now I'm just relearning, well, what does that look like at the next stage? What are the people who are making that next level of impact? How are they operating? And they're enrolling the help of other people, which if you're not great at asking for help is something like I'm just like a baby deer with my little wobbly legs learning how to do. So that's a long answer to say, there will be times if you're really committed to this growth journey, there will be times where you have to stop most of what you're doing so you can, on a cellular level, become a different version of you that's required for the next season.
I love that so much. I feel very seen.
Yeah.
Very seen listening to that wisdom.
And it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'm sweating. How have you, taken this last year, this stillness, everything that you just shared? How has that dipped into your morning or day-to-day routines, but even also how you look at a week? I think a lot of our friends, our peers, ourselves, we can be extroverted, but also really love a good introvert moment.
Yeah.
And that's something that both myself and Matt have really discovered in our last, even more 6 months. It's not even been a full year where we look at our week at a glance of like how much socializing is there and where do we want to ensure that there's protected time for, pizza and movie night on a Friday night in sweatpants with dogs.
Which that's my plans tonight, just in case anyone was wondering.
I'm envious. I'm putting a dress on.
Oh gosh, yes.
So I feel the coziness of your Friday night at home tonight.
And I'll represent for both of us because it is, and and what a perfect contrast, right? Because you're here in Phoenix, you're maximizing your time here, and that's almost sort of how I've realized that I do work best is planning these times where I'm going to be on and I'm going to be fully on and I'm going to be present and showing up and deepening the relationships that matter most. But the biggest shift for me, honestly, has been realizing that where I was accommodating everyone else's needs and thinking that I had to show up and say yes, otherwise I wasn't supporting them. But when I was showing up with an energy of like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be, whether it's, I'm so blessed to be like asked to be on a lot of podcasts. But if I'm sitting with someone on their podcast and I wish I would have said no to that, I'm not bringing my best. So I realized that what I thought I was doing to be this person who everyone wanted me to be and show up for everybody, and I thought that was me being the best version of myself, I was actually being kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
Right?
Fair, yeah.
Because now when I'm saying yes to things, it's a full yes. And I also know that I'm showing up and I'm actually giving my best to the person. So it was a lot of like dismantling these, whether it's people-pleasing tendencies or just like inability to say no or inability to really listen. And listen, sometimes I'm saying no. I just this last week, I had said yes to speaking at something. And then immediately when I said it, I felt the ping that like, nope, that's a no. And so then I had to go back shortly after and say, actually, I'm not going to be able to show up for that. And just trusting that I'm actually doing them a favor because I'm not bringing my half best energy to that invitation, and trusting that. And if I really believe this, because I say that I do, this is like an opportunity for me to practice who I say I am and what I say I believe, then I believe that there's actually someone better, or it's actually in their best interest for me to say no, or for me to remove myself from that environment, because it's allowing space for someone else, or it's even allowing them to experience being triggered and work through what that's doing within them. And if we look at like that from a place of like how interconnected we all are, and realize like we're not supposed to be everything to everyone. Dismantling all of that has actually been the key to creating the space, because I could be busy every moment of the day. And there's a part of my identity that felt very validated by that. So I had to really look at that relationship and also just start to pay attention to what does a no feel like in my body. And I'm pointing like right here to my like
solar
gut
plexus.
Because like for me, it's a gut yes or no, and it's not a maybe. It's never a maybe. If it is a maybe, it means it's a no that I don't want to say no because I'm afraid to disappoint someone.
That's really powerful. And I think that's something that Matt and I have really learned in our brick and mortar entrepreneurship journey, owning our gym, where it has not been easy, but that you cannot be everything to everyone. And I think that's a really powerful lesson in entrepreneurship, no matter what you do, if it's products, services, brick and mortar. I think that's something that we as humans, let alone in business, it's a tough lesson to learn, but man, it's powerful once you can sit in it and realize like, yep, can't be everything to everyone, and that's okay.
Yeah, it is. And I think the fact that anyone who struggles with that and is resonating with that, it's probably because you have the biggest heart and you love people to a fault. But when I realized that, I think that was the story I told myself to justify continuing to be a yes person, when really I was validating myself. And it wasn't actually loving to someone to show up with that less than like, I fully want to be there, I'm fully here with you energy. It was actually doing them a disservice. So once I realized what an a-hole I was, helped me break that.
I'm sitting here with a full heart of gratitude that that you're here. So this is just extra lucky for me. I'm so grateful.
But that's such a perfect, I think, parallel to like close this loop is the feeling you get to give the people that you're saying a yes to is so much deeper than when we're giving scattered energy to too many people.
That's a big lesson that I'm looking to apply this year. I know we're still we're at the very top of February as we record this. And so there's still plenty of weeks and months and days ahead for 2024. And that's something that I'm really looking to adopt myself. So I love that has been a part of our conversation today. And one of the things I kind of wanted to touch on before we wrap everything up is I want you to share about the Expanders Retreat, because this is a big, beautiful new project for you and the Powerhouse Women community, and something that I can't wait to attend. I am so excited to put this on my calendar when the stars align for the timing being right.
Yeah.
But I want people to be able to know what it is, who it's for, and what they can look forward to.
One of the gifts that comes with space is I think it gave me the opportunity to say, okay, well, now there's space, and I like this. And I like that I get to really design my days. I'm really not doing anything that I resent doing. Obviously, there's always things that creep in that aren't as fun parts of running a business. But when I sat down with my business partner and we said, okay, if we were building Powerhouse Women over from scratch, it didn't have to be anything to anyone. It didn't have to look the way it does today. What would we want to build? And the first things, like, again, that gut reaction for me was our podcast and events. It was very clearly events, plural, because we do a big annual event. We're really known for that. But there's something about creating in-person experiences that really is like the zone of genius, the place where I feel like I get to make the deepest impact, and it's what I love the most. And so once we got to the point where we cleared a lot of space, we cleared the things that were just taking up a lot of time and energy, it started to become very clear that there was just this desire for more in-person connection. And there was a demographic within the community that we weren't specifically serving in this way, which, you know, you can attest to, I can attest to, as your business is growing, as you reach these like higher income levels. I think for a lot of us, I don't know if this is your experience, but I, a long time ago, started out earning even like the amount the most wealthy person I knew in my immediate family ever earned. And you don't realize all that that's going to bring up, like these higher levels of success. If you aren't in an immediate family that like really you saw a lot of that modeled. For most of us, we need to continue finding like those next expanders so that we don't unintentionally become the biggest fish in the small pond and we're afraid to make a leap because of what that's going to make people say about us or whatever that is. So there was this demographic within the Powerhouse Women community where they're getting to that point of business that they're having to do a lot of this rewiring, that what got them to their current level of success isn't going to be what gets them to their next, or that they are realizing their friends just, even if they're supportive, friends and family, they don't know how to support them at the level they truly need. So when you're scaling to those higher 6 and 7, multiple 7, figures, it's a different set of needs. It's a different need for community. And we didn't have a specific place within the Powerhouse Women community that those women could find each other. Because they are just a little bit harder to find, right? It's kind of like finding a unicorn, especially the ones that you actually like really resonate with. So we just started to ideate this idea, like, well, what if I loved hosting a mastermind, but I was so over Zoom. I don't know if anyone else is with me on that.
What do I hear? Zoom?
I was like,
Zombie?
Little zombies walking around like, cross-eyed. And I just wanted to host just the retreats. And so I said, well, why don't we do that? I just gave myself permission to do the part of it that I really loved and I really am best at, which is just creating the experience. So my vision for it is so much bigger than this first retreat that we're doing. It's really to create a space where women can find that community, but it can almost become this a la carte mastermind environment where we're hosting 1 to 2 retreats a year. You can kind of pick and choose where you want to pop in, but the community is at the center of it. Knowing that if you're looking to connect with those kind of women, not who are just successful, but who are authentic, who are really willing to go deep and talk about the relationship dynamics that show up as a woman who's really ambitious and making a lot of money. There's so many things that you don't even realize come along with your higher levels of success that if you're not supported in them, you could just make the journey harder on yourself than it needs to be and more lonely than it needs to be. So we're hosting our first retreat in March of 2024, and I'm so excited for it, but I'm even more excited for the bigger vision that's coming on the other side of it.
I love that so much. Yeah. I cannot wait to stalk the daily content that I'm going to see from this retreat and everything that's going to come from it. And where can everyone find you? Like if they want to find the retreat, but then you as well, and which we'll of course put in the show notes. But fire away.
I always say the easiest place to start, especially if you're listening to this podcast on the go to Powerhouse_Women on Instagram. We'll always link everything in the bio there in the little link tree, and I'm not too hard to find on Instagram myself. But plug into the community. I mean, you have an amazing community. If you're craving even more, you can plug into what we're doing with Powerhouse Women. And I just think at the end of the day, we've built this community around the motto that we're just not meant to do business and life alone. And that's become so true, even more true at this stage of my journey and my growth. And I'm just so grateful to have people like you and Matt and the amazing community that you surround yourself with in my life, because that's what it's all about. And that ultimately, if anything else, has been the key to my success.
Do you know that someone at the dinner series event yesterday asked if I was a little baby Lindsey? I was like, when I was talking about what I would do and inspire and move, like, oh, so you're like a baby Lindsey? Like, oh my God. Yes, absolutely.
I'll take it.
That's a full body yes for me. I will take it. It was a big win from yesterday, and I will leave that. And I just have the fullest heart spending time with you and calling you and Elliot as friends. And I'm just so grateful that you took time out of your day to spend it with me, and that the Inspire and Move community gets to hear and feel everything that you have.
It's been just an honor to gaze into your eyes for an hour.
I love this. I'm going to make this make an annual thing.
This is going to be we need to make like a GIF of this, of just us lovingly gazing into each other's eyes.
I might have like a 30-degree head tilt while I'm gazing. Exactly. Thank you so much for being here. I have so much love for you.
I love you too.
Thank you so much for listening. If you loved this episode, it would mean so much to me if you took a few seconds and shared this on social media, sent it to a friend, or left a 5-star review. There is power in community, and I'm so grateful to have you part of mine.